I'm Kenzie from Shrimp Fried Rice, and today we are talking about none other than Gregg Araki's 1995 film, The Doom Generation. Originally released in 1995 and premiering at the Sundance Film Festival, Gregg Araki adds his second installment to his Teenage Apocalypse trilogy, following Totally Fucked Up and Preceded by Nowhere. The Doom Generation ranks as Araki's second highest film according to IMDb. In this film, we follow two teenage lovers, Jordan White and Amy Blue. Jordan, played by James Duvall, most notably known for his role as Frank from Donnie Darko, and Amy, portrayed by Rose McGowan, featured in the hit show Charmed. Soon in this film, Jordan and Amy pick up Xavier Red, a drifter they had met at the club. Xavier is being portrayed by Jonathan Shack. After a quick stop at the late-night convenience store goes wrong due to Xavier killing the owner,
you just get the hell out of here! Come on!
The three teenagers are off on a run, leaving them to take refuge in a motel. Skipping past many sexual encounters between Jordan and Amy and the peeping Tom Xavier is, we are soon to learn by Xavier that the local television station announces that the murdered store owner's wife had graphically murdered her children and herself, leading Xavier to believe that Jordan, Amy, and him wouldn't be considered suspects anymore by the police. Throughout this film, Amy and X being Xavier, depict a strong mutual dislike for one another. But with the sexual tension building up, the two end up having sex.
Yeah, Amy, don't get your uterus all tied in a knot.
Listen, jism breath, I want you out of my fucking car right this fucking second. I'm not kidding, scumfuck. Get lost.
You're, giving me an erection.
Once Jordan finds out about the relations, it only adds more sexual tension between the two boys. We see many other people coming into the story claiming that they're Amy's previous lovers, although they're all just mistaking her for someone else.
Sunshine, is that you?
I think you have me mixed up with someone else. Don't add face. Give me some money.
Don't lie to me now. I know it's you.
Look, you fucking chunky pumpkin head. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
The continuous and violent incidents dealing with these false claims gain the attention of the FBI. The FBI's new goal is to find Amy and kill her. Continuing into this crazy adventure, the trio decides to spend the night in an abandoned warehouse to avoid the FBI. Meanwhile, they all participate in a threesome. When Amy leaves to go pee, X and Jordan are ambushed by neo-Nazis, which were previously one of the characters to think Amy was another person. X is beaten to a pulp, Jordan is constrained by the neo-Nazi, and Amy is raped on top of an American flag. Jordan is then castrated by the attacks, and more horrific events happen that I'll spare the details. Amy is soon to break free, kills the shit out of the neo-Nazis, and escapes with X, leaving Jordan for dead. The film ends with X and Amy driving in a car with no specific destination in sight.
You want a Dorito?
So, with that brief synopsis, leaving out many sexual scenes and themes, let's talk about what this film is about.
Pay your taxes, yes, I warn ya. Your God's dead, there's no hope for ya.
Better way to start than discussing the director Gregg Araki himself. Born on December 17th of 1959 in Los Angeles, California, Araki worked his film career up by attending the University of California in Santa Barbara, graduating in 1982, and then attending the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts, then graduating in 1985. Making his directorial debut in 1987, Araki created Three Bewildered People in the Night. Not only self-identifying as gay, Gregg is one of the biggest names when speaking on the new queer cinema movement. This movement, occurring in the early 1990s and associated with avant-garde and underground films, gave queer stories a new platform. These films weren't the first to depict queer love, but they certainly boost the commonality of it. Coming out of the 80s AIDS crisis, these movies specifically focused on realistic experiences with current events, also tying in many theories such as the feminist theory and queer theory. These works aimed to challenge and debate on gender and sexuality and confuse societal binaries. And not to mention, these films were explicit, not shying away from any sexual endeavors that their characters would take on. Some would say Araki's main contributions would be his Teenage Apocalypse trilogy, but he holds many more titles such as This Is How the World Ends and Mysterious Skins. But focusing on this trilogy, many of these themes focused on teen angst, sexuality, alienation, and aggression, which of course can be found in many of his other films. So what makes the Doom generation or any of Araki's storytelling significant? It's all in the worlds that he creates for his stories, and overall overlap sinister topics. These emotional wastelands are apocalyptic and isolating, reflecting of the AIDS epidemic, continuing to pull realities from queer youth across time. But if it wasn't for these curated environments, these characters would have nothing to build off of. In Araki's Totally Fucked Up, he depicts queer youth and how they are the only ones who seem to care about the world and their surroundings. But because of their identities, the characters are constantly under siege, thus making it hard for these characters to continue loving and starting to embrace their angst and hatreds for their surroundings. Gregg states, "There's a warmth and tenderness between these characters. That's what makes it so heartbreaking because it's set in a world that is so chaotic and hostile." This perfectly encapsulates his characters and the world that they are thrown into. Initially saying that romance has no place in these worlds, these characters deep down believe in love, even if they refuse to admit it, all in all leaving a desire to think. Pretty much all of Araki's characters identify with the LGBTQ+ community, overall putting the perspective of queer life into each of his projects. Not shying away from depicting gay sexual relations in his films, the viewers are sat to watch realities of relationships that have always existed. Okay, so now that we strive so far away from the Doom generation, let's circle back to why all these previous themes mentioned apply to this specific film. The world that Amy and Jordan are thrown into is nasty, murderous, and despicable, leaving these characters to lack care for their decisions. Keeping in mind that Amy and Jordan are still teenagers, we must remember that this is a world that they've grown up in and have always known. Being of that age with all these horrific issues further depicts the crushing weight of adolescence that each of these characters face. Along with the impacts of environments, these characters are meant to navigate their sexuality. Jordan dabbling in with men and women, and X also being bisexual, brings new aspects to work around. In this environment filled with hatred, these characters now have homophobia and even more complex relationships, especially with how much sex these characters are having in the film. But overall, to wrap things up, there's one thing I want to leave off with. Are these worlds that Araki creates fabricated, or do they truly reflect the homophobia that we face today? And in the wise words of Amy Blue,
eat my fuck.